Welcome to the Eyes on Media Silver and Gold podcast review. This is, of course, purely for entertainment and enjoyment. It is not meant to be investment advice. In fact, if you wanted good investment advice, this is probably the last place you should go. Since it's the weekend, we're going to jump into a quick review of some of the charts from last week. Well, I hope you've had a good weekend, by the way. It's been a lovely weekend here. And we have a few minutes on the weekend to contemplate these charts. Silver has been in such a fascinating pattern for such a long time. We have accusations that there's tremendous market manipulation. And on the other hand, we have a distinct uptrend in all the precious metals. It's just not fast enough for some people. With silver, you can see we have the rising bottoms and we have a wedge-shaped declining top. Edwards and McGee, would love to see this chart pattern. It's right out of their book. But you notice that when we break out here from the chart, from the overhead resistance, that this climb is really powerful. This is almost uninterrupted. It has a one little stall in the middle, and it almost looks like a miniature Elliott wave 1, 2, 3 type of acceleration with a down 4 and up 5 yet to come. And that's one scenario that makes a certain amount of sense, is that we could see a little pullback and then another real sharp climb up. However, the traditional Edwards and McGee technical analysis concept here would also possibly apply, which is that there would be a pullback after a breakout. There's your line, the overhead resistance, and you'll notice that it's the same, or basically the same top as we had before. But you get that breakout, and you'd like to see a pullback because that pullback represents a buying opportunity. So the question for a lot of us is, where is the buying opportunity going to occur? Even a pullback back here to the very long uptrend line that I'm stretching out, that would be a perfectly valid buying place, because we'd still have a strong uptrend, and we'd have evidence in the recent price history of a lot of buying power and a weakness on the selling side. There don't seem to be a lot of very powerful sellers in this kind of a move. So I think that is what's so fascinating about this breakout. Now if I can, let me see this little line here. We'll stretch that across. It's not perfectly drawn, but you can see that represents some old highs. You can see that that's where the price stalled right in there a little bit, and it continued on up. So another potential pullback is to pull back from this high to this new line, the horizontal line, which can be going from an overhead resistance line to a support line. You'll notice that the stochastic is sort of consolidating up here in the high area. Tells us that a pullback is very possible. The Williams %R, I don't like that indicator so much, but it's up there in that area that tells us that a pullback is possible also. The real question is, it has to do with if we've got a manipulated buying selling situation, and we've got exhausted sellers who just don't have any inventory to sell, and we've got a lot of enthusiastic buyers, these pullbacks may not happen, and we may see ourselves with silver off and running in a super strong bull move. One of the wild cards to this is that we have this election coming up, and essentially the election represents, on one hand, a spendthrift Congress. Well, let me rephrase this. All Congress seem to be spendthrift. We have a group in Congress who really like to spend a lot of money and borrow a lot of money and tax heavily, and that represents, for the silver bugs and the gold bugs, a very unstable future currency picture. On the other hand, the other party claims to, and we can discuss later or not whether they really are, but they claim to be more fiscally responsible, and that would tell us that the silver and gold momentum could be thwarted by Republican successes. Certainly the success of Tea Party candidates speaks to a desire for fiscal responsibility, but whether or not that'll actually translate into anything real in Congress is hard to say. But that's the battle that's going on in politics. And it's going to be very interesting to see if the Republicans can take seats like they said they can take seats, whether or not that impacts this run to the upside on the part of silver and gold, because this clearly is in the metals a break to the top. You'd think from the charts that the Democrats were going to look like they were going to win. But I think the real question is, will either party really tackle the problem with the banks? Will they tackle the problems with the Federal Reserve? Can anybody at this point solve the debt problem? We have borrowed so much money that perhaps no policy can solve it. So with that cheery thought, we'll move on to gold for a second, looking at it through the GLD market, ETF market. You'll notice that it's getting a nice uptrend line. It's not quite as dramatic as silver is, but of course it's a little bit more placid in its behavior. You can see that we have some nice highs here, and that we are currently breaking through those highs to move into new turf. But we have not broken through in a clear and decisive way the way that silver has. Now, having said that, you'll also notice on the stochastic chart that the numbers on the stochastic are not up in the upper ranges, which tells me that there is some more room for some more room for gold to run up above this overhead resistance line and make it into a support line. Correspondingly, that probably means silver can run some too. But I think that's where gold is. I think we'll see a little bit more climbing with gold. Now, on the other hand, if we see gold simply pull back from these zones, because again, looking at the Williams %R, it's pretty high. If we see the gold pull back, it doesn't mean that we're in a bear market, and it doesn't mean gold's a bad thing. It could well be the buying opportunity for this part of the cycle. This is close enough to this line. I don't know if you want to call that a break through the new highs or not. Don't really plan to take in this conversation the time to go look at other gold charts, but what we should do is go look at other gold indicators and see whether those are breaking out into new highs. But that's what I would expect coming up in the short term. That's very arguable position. Those of us who are gold bugs are always torn. We love to see the new highs, and we love to see the momentum taking us to new high prices. On the other hand, we love to see the dips where we can buy more. So that's my thought. Give me a shout. Let me know what you think too.